panteth for the water, so my soul longeth after thee. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. Does God ever use scripture to speak specifically to you? I'm Rachel. I'm part of the Prayer Space leadership team. And today in the Prayer Space, we are going to listen for God's voice for us in the scripture. First, we'll explain how it works, and then we will actually pray. This method of praying with the scripture is called Lectio Divina, and it's one of the many ways there are to reimagine prayer. Pastor Melanie will share with us how to pray using this method.
I'm Pastor Melanie, and we're going to talk just for a moment about this method of prayer. It's Lectio Divina, it's a Latin term, and it means divine reading. It's an ancient prayer practice designed to immerse ourselves in the scripture really personally. It begins by having someone read the scripture selected, and then as the reading is happening, you listen for words or phrases which jump out at you, call your attention, or speak to you in some way. And then after the scripture reading, there's a moment of silence, and then the scripture's read again, so you get to hear it twice. Sometimes people do it 3 times, but today we're only going to do it twice, given our time frame. But again, you just do that listening, that deep listening for what it is that's calling your attention. And then after the reading, in the silence, you're encouraged to write down that phrase that spoke to you personally. Now, when I do this form of prayer, I actually have a journal that I keep just for this kind of prayer. And I usually write down what I've heard using the acronym SOAP, like soap that you use on your body, SOAP. SOAP stands for, the first is the scripture, the S. What word or phrase from the scripture is speaking to me today? So I'll take a phrase that I heard. The O part of SOAP is observation. Observation. So scripture and then observation. What do I hear? What do I see? What do I sense from that word, that phrase that jumped out at me? The A in SOAP stands for application. Application. So scripture, observation, application. And application, what I mean by that is, how does that word apply to my life right now? And what action do I need to take as a result of hearing that word? That's what I ask myself. And then the P in SOAP, SOAP, stands for prayer. And what I often do will write myself a prayer based on, again, that scripture, that observation, the application to my life, and then a prayer. And I find that it's a very powerful way of looking at a scripture and hearing it in new ways. And I actually use my journal for ideas for preaching later on in my life. But sometimes it's just a scripture that I just, a word I needed to hear. So what we're going to do now is actually practice this. And Chad is going to read our scripture. He's going to read it twice through, taking a little break in the middle for that moment of silence. And again, then just listen to the scripture. It's from Psalm 42. So Chad, you ready?
Great. Let us listen together to the 42nd Psalm. Just like a deer that craves streams of water, my whole being craves you, God. My whole being thirsts for God, for the living God. When will I come and see God's face? My tears have been my food both day and night. As people constantly question me, where's your God now? But I remember these things as I bear my soul, how I made my way to the mighty one's abode, to God's own house, with joyous shouts and thanksgiving songs, a huge crowd celebrating the festival. Why, I ask myself, are you so depressed? Why are you so upset inside? Hope in God, because I will again give him thanks, my saving presence and my God. My whole being is depressed. That's why I remember you from the land of Jordan and Hermon, from Mount Mizar. Deep called to deep at the noise of your waterfalls. All your massive waves surged over me. By the day the Lord commands his faithful love. By night his song is with me. A prayer to the God of my life. I will say to God, my solid rock, why have you forgotten me? Why do I have to walk around, sad, oppressed by enemies? With my bones crushed, my foes make fun of me, constantly questioning me, where's your God now? Why, I ask myself, are you so depressed? Why are you so upset inside? Hope in God, because I will again give him thanks, my saving presence and my God. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read the 42nd Psalm again for everybody. Just like a deer that craves streams of water, my whole being craves you, God. My whole being thirsts for God, for the living God. When will I come and see God's face? My tears have been my food both day and night, as people constantly questioned me, where's your God now? But I remember these things as I bear my soul, how I made my way to the mighty one's abode, to God's own house. With joyous shouts and thanksgiving songs, a huge crowd celebrating the festival. Why, I ask myself, are you so depressed? Why are you so upset inside? Hope in God, because I will again give him thanks, my saving presence and my God. My whole being is depressed. That's why I remember you from the land of Jordan and Hermon, from Mount Mizar. Deep called to deep at the noise of your waterfalls. All your massive waves surged over me. By the day the Lord commands his faithful love. By night his song is with me, a prayer to the God of my life. I will say to God, my solid rock, why have you forgotten me? Why do I have to walk around sad, oppressed by enemies? With my bones crushed, my foes make fun of me, constantly questioning me, where's your God now? Why, I ask myself, are you so depressed? Why are you so upset inside? Hope in God, because I will again give him thanks, my saving presence and my God.
So we give you a moment. What is the word or phrase of the scripture that's speaking to you today? What do you hear? What do you see from this word? And how does this word apply to your life right now? What will you do? What action will you take as a result? And what prayer do you have with that observation and application in mind? Now, I know you haven't had enough time necessarily to write everything down. You can work on that during the day, today. And did you hear a certain phrase that spoke to you as you heard that psalm? Yes. Okay. Did you find that a helpful way to pray?
I did. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And are there any thoughts that anyone wants to share about maybe what the phrase was that spoke to you? Anyone want to say anything about which phrase from the psalm? Yeah, Jennifer.
It wasn't a phrase. It was the word depressed, and it seems like, okay, you're depressed, searching for God to relieve that depression, or something to relieve. And on the other hand, there's this beauty in nature that's there. There's the beauty of the celebration and the singing, and the search or the craving for some kind of peace, and looking for that. You know, this person is depressed, but they're looking for something more, or looking around them and seeing beauty, and actually giving thanks for what's there. So in the midst of that word, depression, they're also giving thanks and hoping to find God in all of that.
So it's depression, but not without hope, right?
Right,
There's a lot
right,
of hope in that word. Right. No, I mean, and what a word for the times we're living through. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the phrase "Where's your God now?" stuck to me a couple of times, right? Because that's an opportunity for non-believers and non-Christians right now with this pandemic to go, "Where's your God now?" And you know, He's here with us right now, and that's the joy of that. So that's what this prayer space has really meant to me lately. So,
anyone else?
Yeah, that phrase, "Where's your God now?" All I could remember was when my father died, my sister said to me, "Why did your God let that happen to you?"
Mm-hmm.
And I know where my God is, and I know I didn't know what to say to her, because I know where God is, and she didn't. Raised the same, but she didn't understand it, and I did. And I almost couldn't get beyond that point.
Those questions they're called questions of theodicy, questions about why do bad things happen to good people, and how can a good God allow evil things and difficult things to happen in the world. That's the questions that Job raised. It's really the question the psalmist is raising as well. So those are ancient questions, right? Anyone else?
For me, it was the word crave,
Mm-hmm.
and that both personally because of everything going on, and also in a larger sense for the world and all of humanity, to find a peace, an understanding, to feel the love.
And what does it mean to crave God? Like, you know, as the thirst, right? That's what I was thinking about. You know, my whole being craves God. Yeah. And we don't usually think about God that way, I don't think. And then you're struck by that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So I hope that this would be a way that you could pray. I mean, you could choose any scripture. That's the beauty of it. And you can read it to yourself, or you can do it in a group like this. And again, with that SOAP application, right? SOAP, that's just a good way to write it down. And I find personally when I write it down, then not only can I go back to it later, but I'm more apt to remember it if I write it down. So, all right. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Rachel as we conclude this time.
As the deer panteth for the water, so my soul longeth after thee. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. So in closing, we want to thank you all for joining us. And next week, join us as we consider how we picture God, using images of God to guide us through prayer.